Chad lived a charmed life. At least that's what everyone in Applewood, Missouri seemed to think. Fresh out of college, he had a good head on his shoulders and even more money in his pockets, thanks to his late grandfather's generosity. But what truly set Chad apart was his genuine love for people. He had a way of making everyone feel like they were the most important person in the room. And when he flashed that megawatt smile, well, it was like sunshine breaking through a cloudy day.
His real passion, though, was sports. Basketball, baseball, you name it, Chad excelled at it. Every Saturday, he'd be out on the field, leading his team to victory with the same easy charm he brought to everything else. This Saturday was no different.
The crisp autumn air vibrated with the excited shouts of players and spectators alike. The annual Applewood Alumni Soccer Game was more than just a game. It was a tradition, a reunion, a celebration of the small town spirit. And Chad, naturally, was the star of the show.
Go, Chad, go! The cheers followed his every move as he weaved through opponents, his eyes fixed on the goal. He loved the thrill of the game, the camaraderie, the sweet taste of victory. But today, something felt different. A shadow lingered at the edge of his joy, a secret he couldn't outrun.
Applewood was the kind of town where everyone knew your name, and probably your grandmother's maiden name too. It was a place where life moved at a slower pace, where people still stopped to chat on the sidewalk, and front porches weren't just for show. Sundays in Applewood were practically sacred, a time for family, faith, and of course football.
After church, the whole town would gather at the Gridiron, a cozy diner with checkered floors and the best darn burgers in the state. It was a tradition as old as time itself, or at least as old as Mrs. Henderson's famous apple pie recipe, which was pretty much the same thing.
Chad always looked forward to Sundays. He enjoyed the familiar rhythm of the day, the comforting sense of community. He'd catch up with old friends, swap stories with the older folks, and soak up the warmth of belonging that only a place like Applewood could offer. But today that warmth felt a little too intense, the familiar faces a little too knowing. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was living a double life. On the one hand, he was Chad, the golden boy, the volunteer, the friend everyone loved. On the other, he was tangled up in a web of half-truths, a secret that threatened to unravel the carefully woven fabric of his life. It wasn't just sports that Chad excelled at. He had a knack for kindness too. He volunteered at the local soup kitchen every Thursday, helped organize the annual town picnic, and was always the first to lend a hand to anyone in need. His friends often teased him about being too good to be true, but Chad didn't mind. He genuinely believed in giving back to his community, in making a difference in whatever small way he could.
His best friend, Matthew, was a different story. Matthew was more cynical, always questioning everything and everyone. He'd known Chad since they were kids, and he'd seen firsthand the impact Chad had on people. But sometimes, he couldn't help but wonder if there was more to Chad than met the eye.
"Don't you ever get tired of being Mr. Perfect?" Matthew would ask, his voice laced with a mixture of admiration and suspicion.
"Someone's gotta do it," Chad would reply with a wink, effortlessly deflecting the question. But deep down, Chad knew that Matthew had a point. Nobody's perfect, and Chad was no exception. He had his flaws, his secrets, his moments of weakness, just like everyone else.